Hi, in today's video we have a special treat. We have two of the rarest pieces of NuTone intercom equipment ever made. We have an example of each of the two models of reel-to-reel tape players that NuTone sold. The one on the left is the model 2405, and it came out along with the 2400 Stereo Music Intercom System. And the one on the right is the model 2406, which was the replacement for the 2405. This particular 2405 was manufactured in July of 1962, and it actually doesn't belong to me. It belongs to one of my customers. He's having some remodeling done in his house, and he brought it to me basically for safekeeping. He was worried that something would happen to it. These are ultra rare pieces of equipment. He didn't want anything to happen to it, and he also thought it might be good for a video. So I appreciate that. I thank him for doing that. This 2406 actually does belong to me. I picked it up off of eBay years and years and years ago. It was not very expensive and I couldn't pass it up, and for the most part it's just sat in the back of the shelf for all the years since I've got it. It doesn't work, but that's okay. It's still a really cool thing to have. According to my customer, his 2405 does work. He bought it not too long ago, probably off of eBay or someplace like that, and he plans on incorporating it into his 2400 system, which I rebuilt a few years ago, replace the record storage cabinet and modify it to accept the reel-to-reel tape player, which is the way it would have been done when it was brand new. The 2405 is not a solid state model. It actually does have vacuum tubes in it, just like the 2400 system does. And mostly what's inside is a power supply and a preamplifier for the reel-to-reel tape player. The 2406 is a fully solid state model, and it actually says here on the front, it says transistor stereophonic. And transistors were a new thing in the early 60s, and most manufacturers would call out that it was solid state or it had transistors, and they would even tell you how many transistors it had in it because that made it better than a company that made one with less. My understanding about these two units is that NuTone didn't actually manufacture these themselves. These were manufactured by another company, and I looked and looked and looked, and at one time I think I knew the name of the company, but I can't remember, and I couldn't find any reference for it anywhere. But these were from a company that made what would have been called institutional pieces of audio equipment. This is the type of equipment that you would see in a school or a college or maybe in some kind of business or something like this. Not so much a consumery item that you would go down to your local stereo store and buy. It's more rugged than that, but it is a very nicely designed piece of equipment. One of the things about any type of device like a reel-to-reel player is that they are primarily a mechanical device. While there is some electronics in each one, they are primarily a little preamplifier circuit and some kind of power supply circuit to drive the motors and those sort of things, but these are mostly mechanical devices. If you're not a specialist in something like this, it's best to leave them alone. I don't work on these. I would never consider working on one of these. There are companies that specialize in these, and they have a lot more experience, and also I would imagine that they know where to get parts or have units to borrow parts from to repair them. This is really best left to someone who has lots and lots of experience. This one, as much as I would have liked to, I did look at it to see. I would love to open it up and show you what's inside, but it doesn't belong to me, and it looks like the procedure to take it apart is very complicated, and we're not going to risk it because it's not mine. This one, maybe we'll get to have a little bit of a look at inside. So let's take a look at each one individually and see what we have. I will be first to admit that I am not a reel-to-reel expert. This particular one, the 2405, this is only the second one of these I've ever seen. So I'm not that familiar with it. However, we have some good information about it that comes out of the NuTone Intercom catalog, which is from 1962, the same time this one was made. What does the NuTone catalog tell us about this? It says it's a complete 4-track stereo reel-to-reel tape recorder of the highest fidelity. So I did some looking into what 4-track stereo meant, because that's not a term that we use nowadays. The best information I could find, and I could be totally wrong about this, is that when it records or plays back, There are actually 4 tracks on the 1/4-inch magnetic tape. I would assume that the head has 4 pickups on it. Don't confuse it with quadraphonic, which is 4-channel stereo. This is still 2-channel stereo, but it's 4 tracks. And I believe the reason that it was designed that way is you get higher audio fidelity on a 4-track tape than you do on a 2-track tape. Now, I could be completely wrong about that, but that's sort of what I got out of the information that I read about it. The catalog says can be used for monaural recording or playback, incorporates its own built-in playback and recorder preamplifier, so that's the electronics that are built into it. Has the best high fidelity reproduction with no wear at all on the tape. And apparently reel-to-reel tapes do suffer from wear and tear. There is a big pinch roller right here. The pinch roller is a big rubber wheel that helps drive the tape and keep it moving along evenly. And when it's playing, the pinch roller sort of pinches down on the tape against a spindle that turns, and that's what helps transport the tape. So I guess reel-to-reel tapes can wear. Record AM or FM radio, stereo, radio programs with full fidelity, and intercom conversations. So you could record your intercom conversations because it's part of the intercom system. I'm not sure why you would want to do that, but you could if you wanted to. Fits into the 2404 record storage cabinet, but is fully portable because it does detach from the door on the inside of the cabinet. However, this weighs a whopping 23 pounds. I'm not sure how portable it actually is, and also you do have to have a 110 plug to plug it into, so if you were thinking you're going to take it to the beach and play the Beach Boys, I think you'd be mistaken. It also says has 2 VU meters for accurate setting of recording playback. So here's our 2 VU meters. We have level A and level B, and these are the adjustments for those, so you can adjust your recording level individually for each channel. Record lock position prevents accidental erasing of the tape. So that's here, that's this knob. So we have, this is sort of the main on-off control knob. So it's in the off position now, and then we can turn it to play, and when it's plugged in, the motors turn on. But it won't rotate to the right to record because there's this little lockout feature right here. And what you have to do is you have to push this down with your finger, and then you can turn it to the right to get it past the stop here, so you don't erase your favorite recording that you just bought. I don't know how much pre-recorded reel-to-reel tapes cost back in the day, but vintage ones nowadays actually sell for a lot of money. The catalog also says has 2 speeds, 7.5 inches per second and 3 3/4 inches per second, up to 7-inch reels, which allows as much as 2 hours of stereo playtime per reel at 7.5 inches per second, or IPS, or 4 hours in monaural. So I'm not sure why monaural is shorter. Again, something I don't know that much about. Individual control of volume on each channel for both record and playback. And finally, very low hum level. I'm not sure if the hum level refers to the hum that may be intrinsic in the playback of a reel-to-reel unit, or the hum, the mechanical hum of the unit itself. I did have a little peek inside, and of course there is a pretty good sized motor in here, and I noticed that on the motor there's a plastic fan blade on the back of it for cooling, I would assume, so it's pulling air through the ventilation slots in the unit, and it's flowing over everything and keeping it nice and cool inside, and maybe that's the hum they're talking about. I'm not really sure. There are also 2 microphone inputs here. We have mic input for channel A and mic input for channel B, and these are 1/4-inch jacks, and I assume that this would be monaural microphones, so if you wanted to record in stereo, you would have to set up 2 at the same time. There's a pilot light here that comes on when the unit is turned on, and we have our rewind, stop, play, and fast forward control up here. I also read in the service manual that it's not recommended that you turn this control while the unit is turned off. It does seem to be a mechanical lever, but if the manual says don't do it, then I'm not going to mess around with it because I don't think it's necessary. Down here below the main knob it says model 2405, NuTone Incorporated, Cincinnati 27, Ohio, 120 volt, 60 cycle, and it uses 60 watts, which is quite a bit, but I think most of those watts are being used up by the motor that runs everything. Here we have our speed control, our inches per second, or IPS, and we'll see how that works. Again, not going to press it when it's turned off because I don't think that's a good idea. On the back of the unit, sorry it's upside down, but I don't want to turn it over and rest it on the face of the unit. We have the all-important carry handle because it is portable. You can pull it off the inside of the door and lug all 23 pounds of it down outside for your barbecue or so. I don't know. Why would you want to carry it around? I don't know. Anyway, you have a carry handle here. We have a main fuse here. It's a 1/2 amp fuse according to the label, this is all upside down, which means right now all the electrons are falling out. Apparently it uses 4 12AX7 tubes. Those are most likely the preamp tubes, 2 for each channel, and then we have one 12AU7. I think it's a power rectifier tube, or it's a voltage control tube. I don't have a schematic on this, unfortunately. We'll just have to make a guess. We have our outputs for channel A and channel B, and our inputs for channel A and channel B, and this is where the inputs would tie into the AM/FM tuner, which is also the input control of the 2400 system, and this is how you could record your intercom conversations or record off the radio or off the turntable. These systems almost always by default have the turntable also, so you could record and copy music off of an LP and then play it back on another reel-to-reel, or take it with you when you go to the beach. So that's an overview of our 1962 NuTone 2405 reel-to-reel tape player. Oh, let's not forget one small important tidbit. So in 1962, this unit retail price was $349.50, and that didn't include the storage cabinet. The storage cabinet I think was another like $65 on top of that. And this piece of equipment by itself actually cost more than the 2401 amplifier and the 2402 AM/FM tuner. So how about that? You had to have some serious coin back in 1962 to afford a 2400 system, let alone buy the 2405 reel-to-reel tape player. This was not your average piece of equipment. This was the top of the line prestige unit that NuTone made, and I actually have something for another video that I'm going to show you how special and how important the 2400 system was to NuTone when it was new. Now let's take a look at the 2406. We're looking at our NuTone 2406. This particular 2406 was made sometime in November of 1966, and that would have put it squarely in the middle of the model 2071 stereo music intercom system that NuTone made. The 2071 replaced the 2400 when it was discontinued. There was a small amount of overlap in production. There was 1 year where I think both models were available, but I'm pretty sure the 2400 was being phased out at that point. And you can see it has somewhat more of a streamlined or jazzy look to it. So it's a little bit more late 60s looking than it is early 60s. And again, we have a catalog page for it. So let's go ahead and take a look at what the catalog says about the 2406. It says plays and records 4-track stereo and monaural tape. So they're still using the 4-track system, I assume because that was the industry standard at the time. Records radio and records and plays them back. Uses up to 7-inch reels at, now things have changed, we have 1 7/8 and 3 3/4 and 7.5 IPS, inches per second. Has self-contained reel locks, push button operation, and a pause lever for editing plus automatic shutoff. So automatic shutoff, maybe that helps address the issue of the pinch roller damaging the tape, or maybe so when the tape unspools all the way, it doesn't go flop, 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 flop like you always see in movies. Or maybe the tape is supposed to be fastened to the reel at each end and then it doesn't come off the left-hand reel and it just stops. Again, not sure about that. It also has fast forward, rewind, and a pause lever for editing. Solid state preamplifier, no speaker built in. Fits into a pre-wired 2074 record storage cabinet. Is also portable, and now it only weighs 17 pounds because those transistors, they don't weigh as much as tubes do. Operates on 110 to 130 volts AC, 60 cycles at 55 watts. So it's very similar to the other one. I would imagine that this was probably made by the same company that made the 2405. If NuTone had a good relationship with them and their equipment was well made and fairly trouble-free, I don't see why they would have changed it. They sort of gloss over some of the details. The additional things we see here are, we have a tape counter here, little mechanical counter, would go up to 999, so it would be easier to find spots on the tape. We have a record light here, so when you're recording, it lights up. This is the pause switch. Here we have monaural and stereo switch for different types of tape. We have two microphone inputs still, here, and these are again both 1/4" jacks, main power switch here, and of course we have our two VU meters here. These are larger VU meters than the other ones, and they are a little bit easier to read, and then we have our recording level adjustments here. Now, and our tape speed is up here. We have 1 7/8, 3 3/4, and 7.5. And we have a little label here that says change speed only when recorder is turned on, turning speed knob only in the clockwise direction. So you're supposed to go click, 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 click to change the speed. One of the things I think I do know about reel-to-reel tape players is that I think the higher the tape speed is, the better the fidelity that you get on the recording or on the playback. I remember that as a kid because my dad had a little portable reel-to-reel tape player, and no, it didn't weigh 17 or 23 pounds. It was a little handheld one like this that weighed like 2 pounds. But I know that when you played it at the faster speed, it sounded better. But again, not a reel-to-reel expert, so that's just what I remember. Here on the back of the 2406, we have a date code 1966, NuTone Incorporated, model 2406, with the voltage rating 55 watts, 0.8 amps. And here we have the model number sticker. It's serial number 406-01874, which would lead me to believe that they made probably 1874 at least, because they most likely started at 0, I would think. To prevent electrical shock, do not remove cover on back. No user serviceable parts inside. Ha, I don't think so. And then we have a stereo and mono switch here inside the recess. And we have our outputs, channel A and B, and inputs, channel A and B here and here. So it's pretty simple. I have peeked inside this one before. This one does not work. All of the belts inside of it have turned to little rocks and tar, and they're kind of a mess. Again, it is a mechanical device, but it does have a really beefy motor inside of it and a fan on the bottom of it, just like the 2405 does. That's the overview of our NuTone 2406 reel-to-reel tape player. Now, I'm not going to let you get away without knowing how much it costs. So in 1966, when this was sold with the model 2071 Stereo Music Intercom System, this 2406 cost $275. So it was about $70 less than the 2405. However, it was still almost as expensive as the master station. The 2071 in 1966 cost $347. But the 2071 incorporates the AM/FM tuner and the amplifier all in the same design because it's a solid state set, so it doesn't have to be as big, and you don't need a lot of room for all of those big giant vacuum tubes. It was still a very expensive and pricey unit, and in reality, in the more than 30 years that I've been doing this, this is the only one of these I've ever seen. And that's the reason I bought it on eBay, was because it may only be the only one I ever see. If any of you are interested, let me know, and we'll do a teardown of it, because I really don't know what kind of condition it's in, and it may be possible to find belts and things for it. So if you're interested in a teardown of the 2406, let me know, and maybe I'll make a video about it. You really didn't think I was going to let you go without seeing the reel-to-reel tape player work here, did you? So what I've got it set up with the ideal setup. I have it connected to a 2401 amplifier over there and a 2402 tuner here, and it's connected into the tape inputs on the tuner. Let's give it a whirl here. This will be the first time I played a reel-to-reel since I was a kid, I think. So I didn't have a tape for it, and the customer didn't give me one, so I looked online. Surprisingly enough, reel-to-reel tapes are really expensive. So I looked around on eBay, I wanted something that was halfway decent, knowing that we can't play very much of it because of the whole copyright thing. So what I've got here is a Columbia stereo tape. It's the new Gary Puckett and the Union Gap album. And am I a big Gary Puckett and the Union Gap fan? No, not even a little bit. But it's a pretty interesting bunch of guys here on the cover. And I'm not sure when this is from. There's really no date on it that I can see. I think it's probably from the earlier mid-60s, I would guess. It's featuring The Girl Is Now a Woman, Don't Give In to Him. On side 1 we have 5 songs, and side 2 we have 5 more songs. And to be honest with you, I don't think I've ever heard of any of these, so I don't know. Anyway, it was inexpensive, and I'm going to give it to the customer when he comes picks this thing back up. Anyway, so I've got this all powered up. It's been turned on for a little while, so it should be all warmed up, because remember, it's a tube model and tubes have to warm up. And I finally figured out how to put the tape in it properly, because it's a little more tricky than you would think, I guess. Let's give it a go here. So I did have a play around with it, trying to make sure that it actually would work. It's a very interesting piece of equipment in that your rewind, stop, play, and fast forward control seems to be primarily a mechanical control, not what we're used to today. You know, nowadays you'd have some kind of digital control, and you'd push the button and things happen, and this is like springs and levers, I think. And I noticed that it's a little tricky to get it to run at what seems to be the right speed. So if we flip it over, I think we lucked out, because it seems to be playing about at the right speed. Do you think anybody will notice this on YouTube and I'll get a copyright strike for it? Probably not, but that's all I'm going to play for now. It's unfortunate you can't play more without getting in trouble. The fast forward doesn't seem to be... You got Alvin and the Chipmunks. So I don't know for a fact if that's the way it's supposed to work or not. You would think the head would retract or something and it would just fast forward, but maybe that's not the way it was done back in the day. The other thing I find really cool about this is when you put it on rewind, watch what happens as it continues to rewind. This thing's got like warp speed built into it, and the longer it runs, the faster it goes, it seems like. Oops, there we go. Boom. Maybe that's why auto stop was important on the next model. I don't know. This thing's really very interesting, and it would take a lot of playing around with it to really understand how the whole thing actually works. But I wanted to let you see it because, you know, it's probably the only time that you or I are ever going to both see it. There you have it, an overview of the NuTone 2405 and 2406 stereo 4-track reel-to-reel tape players. I hope you found this interesting and perhaps helpful. If you did, please give it a big thumbs up on YouTube, because that always helps. There'll be a banner right here that shows you how to subscribe. Go to our YouTube homepage, click on the bell or on the wheel, put in your email address, and every time we post a new video, you'll get a notification and you can watch it. That's all for today. See you on the next video.